So I'd like to welcome everyone to the second Inspiring Women event. And most of you all know me, but I'm Angela Jeffries, and I'm the creator and organizer of Inspiring Women. And for those who don't know me, I'm a shamanic healer, teacher, and hypnotherapist. And many years ago, I began sharing my own personal experiences of adversity and how I overcame it. And at first, I was terrified to share my experiences, but I also felt and knew it was the right thing to do, so I did. But I was absolutely amazed by the response that I received when I shared that very first story. I had people write to me, tell me how much hearing my story helped them. They said that it was so healing for them to know that they were not alone and that there was a way out. And actually now I'm writing a book about it so I can help more people. So I want you to be further inspired. So I'm bringing to you other amazing women that faced adversity and are now better versions of themselves as a result. All right, so let us begin with our very first presenter, who is Mantaha Hidefi. And she is an internationally celebrated color consultant, writer, and public speaker. She refers to herself as a color archaeologist because her role in color forecasting is to understand the present and interpret the future by examining the past. In 2018, she authored her first memoir, Groping for Truth, My Uphill Struggle for Respect. She is a fellow OC publishing author as well. And she also authored The Role of Color in Design and co-authored 2 volumes of Color Design Theories and Applications. And she currently serves as the VP Color Forecasting of Color Marketing Group. And she's also the founding member and Guelph Community Leader of the Canadian Freelance Guild. And Mantaha has lectured in many conferences, trade shows, and universities around the world, and her articles on color and trends were published in numerous trade publications. Wow, that's amazing. So Mantaha, I'm so honored and pleased to have you here, and thank you for taking the time to share your story with us. So take it away.
Thank you so much, Angela, for asking me to be part of this tonight. When I was putting together this, I was thinking, what is the best way to talk about color, and how do I really define how color helped me in my life? And so for those of you who don't know me, I grew up as an abused child by none other than my mother. And later, I grew up also in my teens and in my 20s, being sexually harassed by everyone. And later on, I also went through domestic violence. And so all these events are in my memoir, Groping for Truth. But going back to color, I was thinking maybe the best thing about talking about color is to divide the phases of my life and how color has affected my life in those phases. So I divided them into 3 phases. And the first phase of my life is the first 30 years of my life, actually. And I call it the dark phase. And the reason why I call it the dark phase is that I was going through a lot of abuse. I was going through a lot of depression. I was going through a lot of silence, a lot of asphyxiation by society, a lot of being alone and being lonely. But when I grew up, from the beginning of my life, I always liked colors. And then I never realized this, but I started cultivating colored plants. I grew up in Venezuela, and we have a lot of colored plants. So my side of the garden was always colorful. And then later, I learned, I don't know how, but I learned how to paint. And then I learned how to sew my clothing, and I learned how to do crochet and how to do needlework. And so everything was related to color somehow, or let's say that color was related to everything that I was doing. And so in this first phase, in this slide here, you will see various images that basically represent drawings that I found. There's a lot of my drawings and my paintings are not available right now. I have moved around the world and many of them have been lost. So this is the phase when I was internally trapped by everybody and by everything. And so here, for instance, to the left of the screen, you see some imagery uh, on a black background. So I was painting really on black background in that phase of my life. And you can see I was like looking for an escape. I am within a bubble, but I am burning. I am being burned, actually, just like being on a stake. And I'm looking for someone to help me. And later I have like my head is exploded and all I am is just a cadaver. And for some reason I have the US killing me. I don't know why. And even in this picture, which was in an exhibition, and I have this painting actually exhibited in that exhibition, you can see how sad I was. Like I should be happy my picture or my drawing is in an exhibition and I'm just sitting there like not wanting to be there. Later, then you see on the top right, you see this is representations. These are representations of how I was feeling. So obviously I was feeling silenced in this image here. And this one, I was being killed because that's what I felt. And so here we can see color and drawing speaking on my behalf, as if color and drawing basically was giving a voice to my silence. And in the other imagery, you see I am always chained, I'm trapped, I can't really, I'm looking for something. So this was a very dark part of my life, which I don't like to remember, but it's there, obviously. I can't get rid of it, even if I wanted to. Then the second part was more of a self-discovery phase. And I thought this started around the 1990 and it went for about 10 years. And why the 1990? And in 91, I migrated to Canada. And that was a different part of my life. And then in 97, I went to Dubai. And I went for a month vacation, invited by a friend of mine, and I stayed there for 11 years. And when I was in Dubai, I met this lady called Cinta Gonzalez, who became a very good friend of mine. And she used to do like training about drawings, but in a way to help you basically release your anxiety and your depression and whatever you have inside of you. And the way we used to do that was you will have to paint with the hand that you usually use less. And for me, it was the left hand. And you have to put your other hand in the back of your back. So you're only using one hand and you're only painting with your fingers. You're not using a brush or any other thing. And the pictures that you see in this screen basically were done that way. And on the left side, these are 4 pieces that represent one big topic. And when you do these drawings, you are not thinking about anything. You're just taking colors and just do whatever comes up. And this is what came up with me. I called it Eva after I figured out what it was. And it was a representation of me, basically. It was an Eva that is faceless because I did not know who I was. I was a faceless person. And later, and up until then, I never heard of anything called chakras. And then when we analyzed this image, you can see in this part here, I have in the solar plexus, there's a hole. It looks like a sun. But the fact is, it was a hole. That's what it was meant when I drew it. And that hole basically, later I knew that the solar plexus represents balance and self-esteem, or it could be the opposite, non-balance and non-self-esteem. So that's what it was then. And when you take the entire thing and the colors these drawings, and also on the right side, encounter and turbulence, you see how much color there is. But these are colors that basically, they are not restricted, but they are restricted. They don't have a contour. They are not really done properly. They just colors, a representation of a thought. And then later, Eve, I drew another Eve or Eva, and it's also this person. Well, this is Eve. That's the face of Eve, which is again is faceless. And to me, Eve or Eva was always faceless because I didn't know who I was. I just wanted to use colors to represent my thoughts. And during this part of my life, because I was discovering who I was, I went through a lot of training. I went through a lot of self-exploration and Reiki and shamanic stuff and Silva method. I even walked on fire to discover who I was. And then eventually at the end, I figure out my love affair with color and how important color was in my life. So when I had an apartment in Dubai and I was able to really paint it, I went berserk on it. So I painted my sitting room that appears on the right side, 3 different hues of yellow. And on the left side, my bedroom was actually bright green, which if it was today, I probably would not pick up the same colors for my bedroom. But that's how I felt I could express myself at that specific time. And it was always unconscious. I was not doing this consciously. Color was talking on my behalf or talking for me without me paying attention to it. Then I think on the 2000s and onwards, in the last 20 years, that's when I really start expressing myself and understanding that I could express myself in a better way through color. And probably that started in 2007 when I realized there is an organization called the Color Marketing Group, which I joined and became a member in 2007. And this is a picture of the first summit that I attended in 2007 in Tampa, Florida. And that's when I understood that color basically symbolizes a lot of things and has a psychology to it. And each color symbolizes a thing, and each color can affect us in a different way. But we could also use color to understand the future and to define our present and who we are through the use of color, which I never knew this before, even though all my life I was involved and I loved color, but I never knew that my calling was in becoming a color expert, a person that can predict the future color, which we call color forecasting. And then after that, I started really painting in a different way. So I started painting in an abstract expressionist way. And as you can see here, for instance, the top images is a collection that I called Four Seasons in Montreal. And each color represents a season. And then at the bottom is Four Seasons in China. And again, each color represents a season. And this is when I started realizing the symbolism of color. So I was working and expressing the symbol of color in a romantic way, if you want. And not only I was expressing my feelings through color, but if you look at the strokes, for instance, in the top images, the strokes were of the brush were in a certain way. Like I did not paint in a normal way. And this became my signature stroke. Later, I depicted the winter and summer in Dubai in the same way, through no defined lines or no defined topics. Everything was just through the strokes of color. And then one day I had a hallucination while I was flying from Germany to Dubai in an airplane, and I almost lost it. And then after I got home, this is what I painted. I painted my hallucinations. And you can see, again, hallucinations depicted in color. And I continued doing that in an abstract way. Here we see these 4 images are called progression. And this is all about the evolution of the human being. And so at the beginning is devolution, then becomes evolution, then revolution, then devolution. And each one of those phases represented a phase of my life and also was represented and symbolized in a color. And you can see the strokes, how they change with the evolution of each phase. So somehow I always got those the warm colors mostly that were depicting my thoughts, basically this thing inside of me. Here, for instance, on the left side is the fluid keyboard and the sunshine, and that was depicting my relationship with my husband, who is a musician. And so it's like music mixed with art. So music and art together becomes a fluid keyboard in the sunshine and then in the sunset. And again, you see the difference in color, but always, for some reason, always the warm red, yellow, pink, orange colors. Today, this is part of my sitting room. So again, it's all the warm, the red color that basically represents who I am, the passionate person that I am, but also speaks out loud about me. Now, when we started the pandemic last year, I have to say, I went through a horrendous depressive time, and I was going through anxiety like you cannot really think about it. And I know a lot of people went through this. So what I was doing through this time, at the beginning, I was taking walks, and I would stand at every single place where I saw color. And those pictures that you see are pictures that I took last year. If I saw a flower, I will take a picture of the flower. If I saw a stone, I will take a picture of a stone. If I saw something on the street, like on the right, on the bottom right is the sewage cover painted somehow with green. I didn't know why. So I took a picture of that. So somehow taking a walk, but taking a picture of what I saw during my walk, that was helping me getting out of the anxiety and the depression. But later, obviously, what helped me the most was getting or staying connected with my color tribe, as we call each other, through a lot of Zoom forecasting and networking events. And you see in these images, basically my bed was being used as a table to display all the colors that we were working with while forecasting. And then after that, I paid even more attention to cooking and how I use color in cooking. And this is not new. I have always used color in my recipes that I invent, but this is just a small representation. Most recently, I have been posting a lot of colorful images of food on Facebook. And then last week, or actually 2 days ago, when I went for my vaccine, I was dressed in this green sandals, basically the most flashy green that you can find nowadays, with a flashy red pair of pants. And I think what I wanted to send was a message to the pandemic or to the virus that you're not going to beat me. I can beat you with the colors that I can use. But going back to how color basically can even manifest and help us in our lives, in my book, Groping for Truth, and I wanted to share the cover with you, not to make a promotion to the book, but rather to the colors that I used in the cover. And if you see, for instance, I used red and orange and yellow and white and green. These are the colors used here. And the red and orange, the orange of the leaves and the red of my jacket basically was a symbol of unfolding violence and anger that I went through in my life. But it was also a symbol of my colorful life and how I work with color. The yellow for the title, basically, in this specific, yellow in general is a symbol of hope. But here, it wasn't only a symbol of hope, but for me, it represented the horror stories from my childhood. The white of my t-shirt suits amazingly enough, and this is a pure coincidence. It happens that I am wearing the same shirt today. White usually is a symbol of purity, and here it was, I wanted to convey a message of sincerity because I was telling these stories with sincere truth, basically, and it was a symbol of purity for a better tomorrow I was hoping for. And it also, the white contrasted with the other warm colors. The green of the background behind me, the green is a symbol of growth, but it's used to balance the palette of the entire cover. And the fallen 3 leaves that I was holding in my hand were a symbol of the change in my life, but it was because the memoir is called Groping for Truth. So I was groping to the symbol of the truth, and the truth, the only truth in that image wasn't me, wasn't the green, wasn't anything. It was the tree, because the tree was the only truth for me then. It was, the tree has a trunk, has leaves, has also the roots that go into earth. So it represented the connectivity between earth and the universe. And that was my truth then. And so I'm going to stop the sharing because that's where the color images stop, basically. So if I look back into what I was saying, or if I look back into my life, and I do believe that each one of us at some point in our lives have had suicidal thoughts. I don't think there is a person in the universe that didn't think one day that I don't like my life and I want to get rid of it. But the important thing, although those things and the depression I was going through and the abuse and everything nasty that I went through, I wasn't aware that I was using color to take care of it. I wasn't aware that color was helping me. I also wasn't aware that I could do something with color. It's not until later in my life, probably in the last 15 or less than 20 years, that I realized that color really helped me, and it continues helping me, because if it wasn't for color, which is my passion right now, I don't know how I would live. I mean, I can't really figure out a life for me that has no color. And I believe that somehow color gave a voice to my muted world and to my muted life. And each one of us in our lives usually find something that help us as an escape. Some people do music. My husband, for instance, became a musician. Some other people do write. I also write. Some people became painters. Some people do acting. Some people kill themselves, and I'm sorry to be blunt. We do what we do because we have a necessity to do it, and we all go through difficulties, but I think the most important part is how we deal with it. And do we allow it to take advantage of us, or do we take advantage of it? And one thing I wanted to close this with, Angela, and I think nobody has heard this before. Up until December, you know, I never talked to my mother about how abusive she was with me. And I wrote my book, and she doesn't even know about the book, and she doesn't know what is inside the book. And in December, for Christmas, actually for the New Year rather, we had a chat, all these sisters and my mother, and then for some reason we talked about that, and I asked her why she was so mean to me, and why she abused of me, why she hit me all the time, why she hated me. And amazingly enough, after 60 years, I discovered that my mother has no recollection of anything that she did to me. She could not remember anything. She said she loved me. She never did anything to me. And she said, if I did something, I apologize and I'm sorry. And that we both cried. My sister cried. Everybody cried. And who thought, or who have thought that that would happen after 60 years of my life? I should have maybe spoken to her 30 years ago. That would have been better. Why did I keep it inside of me for so long? And this helped me realize even more that I did well by writing my book, by expressing all these things that were hidden inside of me for so long. And my message to everyone who has difficulties or have been through difficulties: do not keep it inside of you. It is not easy to speak up, but speaking up is better than being silent. No matter what way you want to pick to speak up. It could be by speaking, it could be by writing, it could be by telling someone else, by message, by any means, by a color, by a drawing, by a piece of music. Just don't keep it inside of you. Thank you, Angela, for allowing me this opportunity.
Well, thank you for joining us, and thank you for that wonderful message at the end. And that's really, really important, to find a way to deal with it, reach out, or self-expression. So